As if The View wasn't cringy enough, here's Michael Moore sitting with the ladies talking about his new documentary film, or blatant propaganda, as I like to call it. Let's see what he has to say.
Welcome back. Critics are calling Oscar winner Michael Moore's latest movie, Fahrenheit 11-9 or .9, his most powerful film yet. Please welcome back the fabulous and really smart Michael Moore.
Really smart. I find it funny that we're confusing smart with I agree with his politics. That doesn't mean smart. There's arguably a lot of flaws in Michael Moore's films. Logical fallacies that he jumps through. The mental gymnastics, I guess he is a good mental gymnast. I'll give him that.
I don't know about the smart part, but I did go to Catholic school.
The movie is phenomenal.
I agree with you on that smart part.
The movie is phenomenal.
Yeah, you've never done anything that wasn't a smart thing.
Smart. Everything's smart. He hasn't done anything that wasn't smart. Oh, brother. I mean, the first Fahrenheit 9/11, he went through a whole list of associations that supposedly proved that George W. Bush was in it for the oil. If he was in it for the oil, I don't know where the oil is. It never did come. You might have problems with George Bush, and I think there are some valid criticisms, but Michael Moore didn't even stumble on any, reasonable criticisms. So it baffles me.
Really good at pointing out things we need to know about. So let's talk a little bit about something that's been in the hot topics. So on Wednesday, Senator Dianne Feinstein sent federal investigators a letter about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, according to the New York Times, concerning possible misconduct, sexual misconduct, that he was allegedly involved in as a high school student.
Okay, which is problematic in its own right. I would like to say, if it's true, I think that Kavanagh should be prosecuted. I mean, I realize it's past the statute of limitations. If it's true, it's awful, and he is a horrible human being. Having said that, there's no way to prove that it's true. How are we going to know? Especially today. I mean, it's really, really hard, and I think because of all the Me Too stuff, it's really hard to believe an accusation of rape, or in this case, attempted rape, when there's no evidence and everybody is claiming that they are a victim or that somebody is a perpetrator. Especially the timing makes this unbelievable. If it is true, again, there's no way to know. He shouldn't be considered. He should lose his job. There should be legal repercussions. But there's no way to possibly know that. So Dianne Feinstein is just, I don't know. It's obviously a political attempt to stop the Supreme Court nomination before the election happens. And that way, after the election, Democrats are hoping that things will change because the numbers in the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Now, she ended up sending this because people were sort of making allegations as to what it was, and so she sent it to the FBI instead. Should people know about this if it turns out to be correct?
Well, I think anybody that's going to be on the Supreme Court,
they know about it already. So whether it's been correct or not, the damage has already been done. It's been publicly shared, not shared with police or investigators. It may be, I may be wrong now, maybe she turned it over to investigators now, but that's not initially how it started.
it has to be a complete open book, and you have to know everything. And you could make the case for, well, he could say I was young, or I didn't, I wasn't an adult yet, or whatever. But I think that we live in an era now where things like that, we'd rather transparency than not transparency.
Okay, so Michael Moore is sort of guessing at what Kavanagh might say and making excuses for himself. Kavanagh has denied it completely. So he's not making excuses. He is denying it as a false claim.
And there's never anything wrong with information or asking questions or investigating, and he can make his own statement. I think the even larger issue is that these hearings, people need to understand that this is not about Brett Kavanaugh or the Supreme Court. Right. This is really about, ultimately, whether or not women will still have a right to choose.
Okay, so there's a big jump there. So first off, I want to point out that Donald Trump actually agrees with Michael Moore here that there's nothing wrong with asking questions or the investigation happening. Trump has actually said he's not in any hurry, and so let the investigations happen. He wants it to be a thorough and complete process. So there's no debate here. Like I said, if he did it, that's awesome. Let's find out and get him out. But it's highly suspicious, and I am doubting that it is true. The other thing to say that this is really about a woman's right to choose. So now he's shifted gears here. So essentially, Michael Moore is saying that it doesn't matter whether Kavanaugh did or did not commit sexual assault as a teenager. What he's saying is that the bigger issue is Brett Kavanaugh getting in to the Supreme Court because he's worried that he will overturn Roe v. Wade. So this is the problem. How can I trust, as a right-leaning political, just a person, I'm just some guy, how can I trust when there is a claim like this about a Supreme Court justice when I know that the left says that the most important thing is to get somebody else in there? If they believe this is the most important thing, then of course lying about it or trying to destroy a man's reputation, it's fair game. This is why I and many other people are very suspicious of this allegation.
Or not a certain political group, a minority, by the way, in this country, who believe that the government should be in your bedroom, the government should have some sort of proprietary ownership of your ovaries. And if you believe that...
And that is a straw man argument at its greatest. Do you believe that the government should be paying for abortions to happen, to murder babies? You see what I did there? It's the same exact thing. Painting it in a light it's a straw man argument. In fact, I think mine's a little bit closer to reality. But it's rich coming from the left that, they think that the right is into government having control over people's bodies. Government is there to protect life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. None of those things can happen if you are killed inside the womb.
If you believe that, well, go for it. But I got to tell you, the majority of Americans don't believe that. And
well, that's debatable. It's split. Let's look it up, shall we? And here we are. Gallup polls suggest more Americans consider themselves pro-life. And in case there was any question, here it is. It does flip-flop throughout the past, but currently there are more people that consider themselves pro-life than consider themselves pro-choice. Things have flipped yet again. So public opinion does not make a good argument.
If you've seen that documentary, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, this is like, back then, they asked every question. Yeah. And you had to answer because the people have a right to know, well, where do you stand on this? Because it does affect you can't just get away with, well, it's a hypothetical, or I didn't,
It's a lifetime appointment.
It's a lifetime appointment. And my friends, that the fact that Trump, assuming he makes it to 2020, and if he gets a second term, and you have to operate with the understanding that he could be a two-Trump. People didn't believe Bush would get us.
I'll be honest, I didn't vote for Trump, but nothing was sweeter than watching as the vote came in on election night and watching all those states turn red and watching all the news anchors just bawl. It was a beautiful thing. So actually, Trump 2020, I would be pretty excited to see that happen.
We get a second term, and he got one. If Trump is your president until January 20th of 2025, just do the math in your head. How old will you be in 2025? That's how long Donald Trump is going to be your president. He will have another 1, 2, or even 3 Supreme Court appointments are possible.
And that's why former President Barack Obama said elections have consequences. Because if you then become president, you get to make these decisions. And you predicted...
Unless somebody blocks you.
Yeah. Well, and that's why the politics matter, and who voting for Senate and Congress all is really important, too. But you were one of the only ones saying, take this guy seriously. Take Donald Trump seriously.
Not literally, seriously.
Take him seriously.
Yeah.
This is someone that could actually win. And you've got a lot of Trump folks who are angry right now because there's a narrative with the Woodward book and most recently that New York Times op-ed telling a different story of what's going on at the White House. Do you have a theory of who you think this op-ed writer is? And you think he's a traitor or a hero?
Oh, this is rich. Michael Moore is going to make a prediction. Let's see how right he is. I have a feeling he doesn't even really know who is in the Trump administration, let alone able to figure out who wrote the mysterious op-ed.
Well, it could be our Russian ambassador, our ambassador to Russia, could have written
You
it.
mean my dad?
I'm just teasing. No.
Full disclosure, he was great friends with my grandpa who passed away this year. And,
Yes,
and it's a great story because politically they couldn't have been more different, but you come together as friends and values.
Correct, and your father...
Cringy. John Huntsman Sr., here in the great state of Utah, he is a highly revered man, and he has done a lot of philanthropic work. He has there's so many things he does for medical science, and I'd like to see what Michael Moore does there.
Other is the Republicans who really wish they had their Republican Party back instead of the Republican Party that's now been
It's not
dismantled.
the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party,
It's
right?
the Trump Party, right. And even John Boehner said that. The Republican Party is dead.
Right.
It's the Trump Party. Let's start calling it what it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because Kavanagh is actually a very traditional Republican, kind of a Supreme Court pick. So even if you had like a Rubio in there, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of the most mainstream Republican you can find, you're still going to be, up against the same kind of nominee. So it really doesn't make a difference that Donald Trump happens to be the one that appointed Kavanagh.
Yes, I did try to warn people but I live in Michigan, so I saw what was going on. And I saw that a lot of people who didn't necessarily like Trump wanted to use him as their Molotov cocktail to blow up a system that had hurt them. And they didn't know any other way to do it. Remember, Michigan also, in the primary, voted for Bernie over Hillary. So there was already the indications that there was discontent and people wanted something different. They wanted change, and it was...
They got it.
Do you think Bernie...
This is another sort of conflicting point of view that I hear from a lot on the left, is that there's the downtrodden blue-collar workers that voted for Trump because the economy's bad and they feel left out by the system, something like that. Yeah, I'm sure there are many people like that, but that's not a full picture. There's not the people throwing Molotov cocktails and voting for Trump just to see the world burn. It's really a relatively small group of people. Many people voted for Trump because they could not stand Hillary. I mean, even Michael Moore himself used to rail against Hillary. Hillary, she's corrupt. Under any measuring point, if you're being intellectually honest, she participated in corruption, at least, and only if you look at the Democratic National Convention, if you looked at the Democratic debates, the whole process for the primaries, Hillary Clinton was corrupt, and she participated in corrupt actions.
Would have been
sure got
do
it.
you think Bernie would have beaten Trump? Because they were similar in many ways.
I personally think he would have, and I'll tell you something that there's a poll that's they're going to release in West Virginia. The Democrats took a poll to ask if the election in 2020 was between Bernie and Trump. Now you gotta understand, West Virginia, #1 state for Trump, 68% of the vote. If the election in 2020 was between Bernie and Trump, how would you vote? 48% Bernie, 46% Trump.
Okay, here's another problem for you. The polls were all wrong. They asked people and they polled people before the election who would win, Hillary or Trump. And everybody in the mainstream media, everybody that I knew even, expected Hillary to win. Michael Moore expected Hillary to win. These polls mean nothing.
In Trump's biggest state. Wow. So, but if the Democrats, and I'm guessing they will, just put up another same old, tired, uninspiring, let's not go too far.
Right.
Read that as Hillary Clinton.
Let's just have half health care.
So who's your choice? Who do you think would beat Trump?
The honest answer to that is I don't even know if we're going to get to 2020 as a democracy.
Oh my goodness. The world is just going to end before we get to 2020. You're talking a year away, a year and a half. I mean, at what point does the world just explode and all of us die? Is it going to happen next month? I mean, we've gone this far. What's changed? People give Fox News crap, and sometimes rightfully so, for stoking up fear and hyperbole. But my goodness, Michael Moore, what is the point of this? That's ridiculous. I'm going to record this and make a video in 2020 just to show that everything is still around.
I don't even know.
Really?
Well, did you see the poll recently that
when 50... When do you see this movie? You'll kill yourself.
Yeah. Don't. You won't do that.
This movie is like, oh my God, this country.
I'm just going to say, she's kidding.
Yeah.
She's kidding. She's not trying to be kidding. Neither is Michael Moore. He's trying to make people afraid. They tried that in the last election. They're still trying it. I mean, it gets old. How many times can you cry wolf?
Of course, I'm kidding.
Yes,
It's an expression.
It is an expression, but we always like it because some of y'all take stuff really literally.
Right.
That's because you say it on national television like you are somebody important that knows.
And seriously.
When
I say if you go to see my movie, there's free popcorn and goobers, I am just kidding.
Okay. But Michael's sticking around,
okay.
And we'll be right back.
Anyway, so cringy. Michael Moore, you are a worthless hack. And I hope nobody watches your movie. Thanks, and we will talk to you soon.